My name is Agnes Fries, and I am the creator of a tool called the Grid Designer. Grid Designer is a drawing tool for making craft charts, colorful craft charts for things like crochet and knitting, cross stitch, latch hook rugs, things like that. And I want to let you know that it is absolutely and completely free. I have been a software developer for 30 years, and I am now retired, and this is my retirement project. And it is literally a gift to the crafting community. And I want you to know that there are no ads on here and there is no login required. You simply open the editor and start editing, and you can save it right there in your browser and come back and get it the next time you start up. So anyway, let's get started with this video. In this video, I'm going to show you how, if you have a Graphghan project, it's in the Grid Designer, you can get an estimate of the yarn that you will need for your Graphghan project. So we're going to do single crochet, half double crochet, those kind of are together, and they're done the same way. And then we're going to do a corner to corner example. So let's get started with the Grid Designer. And then I'm going to open up my previous project that I had. Okay, so this is a Graphghan project that uses a combination of Red Heart Super Saver and I think it's Bernat. Let's see, where was it? Bernat Super Value. So it uses a combination of those worsted weight yarns. And we're going to get an estimate for the amount of yarn that we need to do this project. So we're going to go here to Project, Download. Okay. And first, there's the download image settings that comes up. Now all the settings in here simply affect the picture that we're going to be downloading. And we're going to download the picture inside of a PDF file to get our yarn estimate. So these don't affect anything, we just, other than the picture and the way it appears. So these settings are covered in the print and download video. So we just go download. And now the PDF option is the option that provides the yarn estimate. So we're going to pick on PDF. And now we have to turn on the written directions that will be dumped into the PDF file. And we have to pick our type of crochet that we're working. So we can do single crochet, half double crochet, corner to corner crochet. And the reality is you could do like double crochet and other things in here if you just put the right yarn length in here. It could extend to something else too if you want to do that. But I just have examples for single crochet, half double crochet, and corner to corner crochet. So let's do this. We're going to do single crochet, and we're going to add a yarn yardage estimate to this. And now that turns on this little box here, and we have to put a value in here in order to get our estimate. We have to measure from our own work what the yarn length is for 10 single crochets. Okay, so we're going to have to measure like in inches or centimeters. How much yarn do we use in 10 single crochets? And this is the only piece of information that you have to put in here that determines, what the estimate turns out to be. So even if you were using a different palette from what yarn you were going to, or even if you had your crochet gauge set to something that doesn't match what you're going to crochet here, that doesn't matter. The only thing that's going to be used to determine the estimate for your for the yarn you need for your project is the value you put in here. And so this is important. So we want to get the yarn length for 10 single crochets. So this link here will take you to a web page that I've written that has videos on it that show you how to do the measurement. So this is for the single crochet and half double crochet Graphghans, and you can play that right here in this on this web page, or it plays in there. It's corresponding to a video that's on YouTube, and I'm going to just insert that in the video right now so that you can see how to make that measurement.
We're going to be measuring the amount of yarn that's going to be contained in 10 single crochet stitches. And you can do this with half double crochet or double crochet. The measurement of yarn that we get for those 10 stitches, we're going to put that into Grid Designer so that it can estimate the amount of yarn we're going to need for our Graphghan project. So if we're planning a Graphghan project in Grid Designer, we want to do this measurement with the same yarn or the same weight of yarn that we're going to be using for a project, and also with the same crochet hook that we're going to be using for our project, so that the sample represents exactly how the yarn is going to be crocheted. So I have a sample here where I've worked at least 10 stitches that I can pull out. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to put my thumb and finger together here on the end to hold on to that so that I don't pull too much. And I'm going to put my thumb and finger together here at the other end of those 10 double crochet or 10 single crochets. So we're going to pull out those 10 stitches and measure with the yardstick that I have here how long that yarn is. So let's pull those out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we've got that pulled out to here. And now I'm going to take my yardstick and, holding on to both ends, I'm going to place one end where I was holding it on the very end of the yardstick, and then we'll slide our yardstick down here, and we're going to put the other end here so it ends up about there. Now when we're measuring this, we don't want the yarn to be stretched out. There's a lot of give and take in yarn. You don't want the yarn to be stretched, but you don't want it to look, like this. You don't want it to be lumpy. So you want your yarn to be, straight but not stretched out. So let's do it something maybe around in there, and you can see it's straight, but it's not really stretched out. So let's mark that at, looks like 24.5 inches. And that's the value that I would put into Grid Designer for the length of 10 stitches.
Okay, so now we've got our measurement, and we know that we're going to be doing single crochet. 10 single crochet stitches are 24.5 inches. So we've made our measurement. I'm going to go back to my screen here, and I'm going to put 24.5. 0.5 is half an inch. Okay, in here. And now we're going to say download. Okay, now this can be done differently on different machines because something might pop up and ask you where you want to put the download. It depends upon how your browser is configured. It depends upon how your PDF viewer is configured. And it depends upon, what device you're on and all of that kind of thing. So how this is configured is entirely dependent upon your machine and your device and your browser. So mine is set up so that this PDF my PDF viewer pops up with my PDF in it after it's done the download to my machine. So however you get to the PDF is kind of dependent upon your settings on your computer or device. But basically what you get in the PDF is you get the picture, you get the list of colors, and then you get written directions. And it's possible that if you're just interested in the yarn estimate, you don't care about the directions. So we'll just scroll all the way down here to the bottom, and we'll see the yardage estimate down here at the bottom. Okay, and that tells us how many yards we need of each one of these yarns. Now, this should be a large estimate because it should it includes tries to estimate the amount of tails that you might have in the yarn, as in addition to just multiplying the number of stitches that you have of a particular color by a certain yarn length that's computed from what you put in as your 10 stitches. It also adds 10% uh, number 10% more stitches of each color. So it should be a pretty good size estimate, and it shouldn't be that you need more than what's in here. Unless if you're doing something different, like if you were carrying colors a long distance back and forth across your project as you work it, it's possible in that case you might need a little more yarn. This is assuming this estimate kind of assumes that you pretty much end the yarn color where it ends and you leave a tail unless that tail can be easily carried somewhere else. So I think that should work for the vast majority of people. Please leave me a message if this does not work for you, and let me know what your project is. You could share your project with me and I could take a look at it and see if this does not work for you, why that was the case. But I believe this will work for the vast majority of people. Okay, so this gives us our measurement in yards, but let's say we have Red Heart Super Saver, and I would really rather have that in ounces because the Super Saver, the kind of the normal size skein comes in a 7-ounce skein, and I'd like to know how many ounces that actually is. And so I've added a yarn calculator here at this web page here. And if you click on this, that should come up in your browser. Okay. And so this will convert things from ounces to yards and back and forth, and it will also do grams and meters too. Okay, so on a Red Heart Super Saver yarn label, we're going to read the information that's on there. So what we're going to do is this first part is we're going to put in what's on the yarn skeins label. And on a Red Heart Super Saver um, a yarn label, it will say 7 ounces is equal to 364 yards. So I want to put those two values in there because that gives us a way to calculate the other value that we're going to get here. So I'm going to say continue. And then next, I'm going to put into this my, whoops, it was in my, so down here and here. So 144, let's just say 145 yards. Okay, so I want to go 145 yards. I'm going to change this to yards is equal to, and then we calculate 2.788 ounces, or number of skeins that we're going to need is 0.398. So zero point 0.4, little less than a half of a skein. Okay, so we're not even going to need more than one skein. We just need one skein of yarn for this. I'm going to use about half of it probably. Okay, and then we could go and get an estimate for the next yarn. Let's see, so this is Bernat Super Value. And in that yarn, we're going to need 162, let's say 163 yards of this honey color. So I'm going to put in 7 ounces, and this is now from the label of Bernat because it's a different type of yarn. So it says 7 ounces there is 440 yards. So that resets our calculator. And then we needed, what, 163 yards. So I'm going to put in 163 yards, change that to yards, and then say calculate. And that's going to be 2.5 ounces or so, 0.37 of a skein. So a little less than a half of a skein. So again, on only one skein of yarn for that particular color. So you would go through, if you wanted to convert these to ounces, you can use this yarn calculator to do that. You could go through each one and figure out how many skeins of yarn you would need for that. Okay. All right, so let's do now the corner to corner project. So I'm going to go back over here to Grid Designer. Let's close this up again. So Grid Designer's here. Let's open our bunny. This is my bunny baby blanket. Okay. So, and I'm going to do this in corner to corner. with a different yarn. And I'm just going to go to get an estimate of that using corner to corner. I'm going to go down here and say project, download. Okay, again, these settings here affect only the picture that's going to show up in the PDF file that we're going to get. I'm going to pick up my PDF file here. I'm going to pick up, say this is corner to corner, add my yarn yardage estimate to it. And now we need the yarn length for 2 corner to corner blocks. And we're going to put that in here in inches or centimeters. And again, we can watch the video for how to measure this by clicking on this link, which takes us to that page that we were at just a minute ago. And that's the single crochet or half double crochet video there. And we're going to go down here to the corner to corner Graphghan video to show how to measure this yarn. And I'm going to show that video right now.
We're going to be measuring the amount of yarn used in 2 corner to corner crochet blocks. We're going to use this value, this amount of yarn that's used there, to put into Grid Designer so that Grid Designer can estimate the amount of yarn used in a corner to corner crochet project. So what we want to do then is to create a sample of corner to corner crochet that uses the same yarn, or at least the same weight of yarn, that you're going to be using in your project. And you also want to use the crochet hook that you're going to be using for your project, so that the sample that you create is an example of, of a portion of the project, and then the length here used by these 2 things will represent the length of 2 blocks in your final project. So let's take the crochet hook out here. And what I'm going to do is hold on to the right side here with my thumb and forefinger to that last stitch on the 2nd block. And then I'm going to start here from this the slip stitch that attaches this 2nd block to the next block here. So I'm going to start from that slip stitch, and I'm going to grab hold of the yarn here with my thumb and forefinger on this side. And now I'm going to pull out those 2 blocks of corner to corner crochet yarn, and I'm still holding on to this here and holding on to the other side. So I've pulled out those 3 chains that are there at the very beginning of that block. And now I have a yardstick, and I'm going to put one end down here at one end of the yardstick, and I'm going to slide this down so we can look at the other end. Okay, so what we've got here is we're coming up about 33 inches. So what we want to do here is we don't want to stretch the yarn out like this, but we don't want the yarn to be lumpy like this either. We don't want it to be loose. So we want the yarn to be straight but not stretched when we do this measurement. So let's come in about here and trying to get my yarn so that's a stretch. And if I just let it go back to where it's kind of straight but not stretched, like this, then I'll come up at about maybe 34.5 inches, something like that. So that's where that's the number that I would put into Grid Designer. 34.5 inches, which would be 34.5 inches.
Okay, so we have a measurement for this, which is now 34.5 inches. So we go back to our Grid Designer here. We're going to put in 34.5, 34.5 inches, and we're going to click download. Okay, and again, this will be different on different devices, different browsers, such and such, but it should download you a PDF file. And if at any point you're having difficulty getting the PDF file downloaded or something like that, one thing you can do is you can share your project with me. Do project share from the Grid Designer main menu. That will give you a link that you can cut and paste into an email to me. You can put it on my contact page, and I could get the PDF for you, and you know, and send it to you if you need some help with that. So, okay. So, but how that is done in your browser depends on your device again and your browser and all those settings and stuff. So, mine is set to pop up. So I've got three colors in here: the white, the light blue, and the royal. Then it's going to give me corner to corner directions here. And if I scroll down, the yardage estimate is always on the last page. So let's get there. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this says white. We're going to need 620, we'll say 621 yards of white. I'm going to go again to my calculator here. And in this case, I'm hoping to use a lighter weight yarn. I've got Patton's Astra yarn. And in here, it says that 50 grams on the label of this yarn. It says 50 grams is equal to, let's see, 161 yards. Okay, so that's what it says one skein of yarn is. Okay, now I need 621 yards. So 621 yards. We'll change this to yards, and then we're going to say calculate. Is going to be 192, 193 grams. And the number of skeins I'm going to need is 3.8, almost 4. So I'm going to need 4 skeins of this particular color, of this white, if I use Patton's yarn for it. And that is the yarn that I use to do the estimate. When I estimated the 2 blocks, the length of the 2 blocks. And then light blue, I would just take that value and put that in there too, and I would come up with number of ounces, and number of skeins that I would need for each particular yarn. So it's a matter of just going through each one of those. Okay, so I think that's about it. Um, that's the way you would do the yarn yardage estimate. It shows up in the PDF that you download, so you just want to go to project download and follow you know, the directions from there to get the PDF file. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.